Mike. I'm not sure what you own, but this here is on the mark. Like a spiral from a 5-star recruit, we throwing darts, really focused. WD-40 couldn't stop the way we grinded. In the trenches, putting that work in, I relate to all my linemen. This is for the men, the boys do not belong here. Tiptoeing to the top, we doing cone drills. The hottest show in the world, you don't even gotta search. Steady putting in work, you see the sweat up on my shirt. They wasn't aware of us at first, we wasn't on their radar. Now every play that we make, they gon' say, similar to a razor blade, we gon' stay sharp. The news ain't official if it's not on the mark.
Show powered and sponsored by Sports Apparel. I can be back up in the Fishbowl Radio Network. Listen, man, we got a great show for you today. We're going to talk Week 7, but let's go back to last week, the big game around the Metroplex 5A D1 matchup, Aledo and Denton Ryan. Man, let's dive right into it. Of course, Aledo comes back. They were down 7-2, I believe, and they come back and get the win 15-14. 131 games, they haven't lost a district game. That's, that spans back to, I think, 2007 was the last time that they lost. That's a remarkable record. Shout out to the Bearcats as an organization, as a team, as a community, man. They haven't lost a district game in quite some time. Now, the Ryan Raiders, they come off, they were undefeated, ranked up in the top 5 in the state in 5A D1. I think they're going to be fine. That was a defensive game. Aledo's got one of the best defenses in the state of Texas. And they held up pretty well. And I think this year's Aledo's defense is probably stacking up there with some of the Aledo Bearcat defenses in the past. And I think that this team is really based on this defense. This was probably the best team that they played. They battled against Guy Lancaster as well this year. But these Bearcats look like they're ready to go back to state. We still got a couple more weeks left. I think they got a big matchup coming up in a couple of weeks with Richland. I really think Richland is that team that could give them a real challenge. I know that Ryan was a really good team, and they really gave them everything that they could at that particular time. Now, the big difference was first downs. Aledo moved the sticks. They had 22 first downs to Denton Ryan's 9, 274 total yards to 169 for Ryan. Again, that's that defense. And most of that was through the air. On the ground, Ryan had 4 yards rushing. Let me say that again, 4 yards rushing. So what that says is they stopped the run up front. Those particular guys with this Aledo front 7, they're playing at a high level. Of course, on the back end, you got Hall, you got Swanson, and those guys who are veterans back there. And this is a recipe for success. I think that Aledo's one of those teams that you just got to look at. Of course, they got a championship pedigree. They're title town for what they do, as a program. But I think that, this is the recipe that they're going with this year. They had 184 yards rushing, did Aledo, in this particular game. Now, what they're going to do defensively is something that you hadn't seen in a while. To hold Ryan to just 4 yards rushing is saying something. But Caden Wingfield is one of those guys in the backfield for the Aledo Bearcats. But Lincoln Tubbs, let's talk about that's a – I saw some highlights, and I'm going to check out some more film on him. Big bruiser, man, 17 carries for 101 yards and a tutty. That's what the Aledo Bearcats do. They like to get physical with you up front and play great defense. That's their MO, and that's kind of what they did to Denton Ryan and getting that win. So, shout out to the Aledo Bearcats on the road. 131 games and counting. That's what you look for when you look at programs, man. And we look around the state of Texas and we start to see these programs, and you want to know what it takes to win. Well, definitely the Aledo Bearcats. If you ever been to an off season over in Aledo, you know that those guys work the heck out of those kids over there. And there's a reason that when you go to an Aledo game, everything's in orange and black. It's kind of like going to a Cowboys game where everything you see cowboy earrings, cowboy wristbands, helmets, whatever you can, Cowboys, trucks, cars, whatever. You know what I'm saying? It's the same thing with Aledo. When you go to a Bearcat game, it's one of those things that people write books about. But I think that, this is a team that's, they're squarely focused on getting back to December and getting back to Arlington. But they got a lot of work to do. I still think that they got a big one at Richland coming up shortly. But another big game from last week was Guyer versus Capel. Now, what I thought about this game was I thought that Guyer, was coming in. They were one of the teams that in the Metroplex that was battle tested. They got the win over Capel 35-21. Caden Cobbs has been playing some phenomenal football out of the backfield for those guys. Of course, that defense is salty as well. But Capel's going to be a playoff team, I expect. But I think the big matchup coming up is Guyer and Louisville. We gotta see that one. That's probably one we're going to have to pull up on here in the next couple of weeks. Of course, you got Flower Mound Marcus as well in that district. But I think that Guyer made a statement with this particular win, and they end up getting the dub 35-21. So, what can you say about these guys? Shout out to my guy, Coach Keese over there. He's built one of those programs. Coach Kyle Keese is the strength and conditioning coordinator over there, of course. And Guyer's one of those teams and one of those organizations or programs that when you go over there in the off season, you hear click clack and clink clank. It's business being handled. You know what I mean? Like when we talk about off season work, they get it in. You know what I mean? And you can look no further than why they're winning and why they're one of the top programs year in and year out, not just in DFW but around the state. And I think that was a really big game for those guys, and they take care of business 35-21. I think we're going to see a big clash coming up. Of course, Louisville gets a big one over Braswell last week as well, 46-0. I think that these guys, right now they're one of the best teams in the state, not just in DFW. They're playing at a high level. I think that Louisville, the sky's the limit, but they got some work to do. This Guyer-Louisville game has become a rivalry, and we'll see that pretty soon here in the next couple of weeks. Now, one big score that really did shock me was Hebron gets by Flower Mound Marcus. We just mentioned him, but Hebron's a good team. Hebron's one of those teams that you can't sleep on. It's one of those teams that you can't take your eyes off, and they get a big victory, 49-42. I mean, you can't say anything else about Hebron. They were a playoff team last year. I think South Lake Carroll put them out last year. Listen, that district is starting to mount up as one of those districts that you kind of got to keep an eye on, that you kind of, this is one of those teams that hey, you got to fight to the end with those guys. You know what I mean? So I really think that Hebron's one of those teams that's kind of sneaking up on people. You know what I mean? And that's what you get from those guys. So, you never know about what's going to happen out, in what you see, from the preseason. We always, we prognosticate or we forecast who we think is going to be good based on, a lot of times coming into the season about what they did last year and what they got returning. And that's what you get. You know what I mean? I think these guys know that that's what they're looking for as far as being successful. And we know that, Hebron's got a winning pedigree for sure. And, we know that team is going to be a tough out. They were a tough out last year. They gave Southlake everything that they could handle last year when it came to the playoffs last year. But another big game. We talked about Roy City as an up-and-coming team. Of course, they got some young guys over there that can play. But Forney gets the victory, 40-26. Javion Osborne and Forney, Nelson Peterson and company over there. There's some. They got some things that you just don't have when you see with these particular teams. You know what I'm saying? Now, we're going to talk about their game this week as they head to East Texas, and they take on Longview. And I'll go more into that in the second half of the show. But if you've never been to a game in Longview, it's kind of one of those things that, again, people write books about. And I'm going to talk about that. I drove down to Longview to watch them play Lancaster about 3 years ago. And it was one of those bucket list type things when you look at teams and venues, and especially in East Texas. East Texas is historically one of those places where you can go and find a great game on any Friday night. It's just, it had everything you want in an East Texas town, East Texas field, East Texas stadium, and definitely the Longview Lobos mystique. But we'll get into that when we get into the Forney game. Another shocker. A big-time upset, at least in my eyes, was Boswell takes down Crowley 28-27. The Crowley Eagles, they've been one of those teams that's kind of been, I won't say flying under the radar and maybe not underachieving, but just, it's kind of a head scratcher. They've been playing some great football, but then they've been coming back and they've been kind of struggling in spurts. But I think this says everything about Boswell. A lot of times, Fort Worth, they don't get a lot of love. When you say Fort Worth now, you think about North Crowley first. You don't think about Boswell now. I would say 10 years ago, Boswell was a team that you needed to know about. Coach Abersham and his the Pioneers over there, they were one of those teams that made playoff runs every year, probably about 3-4 rounds deep, and had a plethora of talent over there. But with Saginaw having more schools eating around there, it's pretty close. There's more kids branching out outside of those areas and moving out to the outskirts, out of the Saginaw area. But Boswell gets a big victory, 28-27. They're a player in that district now, and that's what you're looking at. Who's playing great football at the right time? And I thought that was a big one that made my eyebrow raise just a little bit, because listen, you got to know that Boswell's thinking bigger picture here, and they still got to look at North Crowley soon. So I think that was a big one for me last week as far as scores go, and games that we were talking about. I think that was a big one. Shout out to Burleson, man. Listen, I think Burleson sneaking up. The Elks got something going on. 36-14 victory over Grapevine. They're fighting for a playoff spot as well. So, those are some of the scores that kind of got to me last week. And how about Northwest getting a big victory over undefeated LD Bell team? We're right down the street from LD Bell, 19-17. That's a big victory for Northwest. These guys have been playing pretty good football as well. But LD Bell had come into this particular game, or they had come into this one as one of those teams that hadn't lost a game yet. And everybody around here was kind of starting to say, hey, we need to take a look at LD Bell. Of course, we're going to still look at LD Bell. But I thought that these guys, had a big-time win when it comes to, things that we didn't see coming. If you were talking last week and you wanted to say who was going to be the favorite in this game, you think LD Bell. They got all the momentum. They're undefeated, been playing at a high level, and then Northwest knocks them off. That's what Texas high school football is all about, and that's what we do this for at the On Your Mark show. But I mean, this is something that we hadn't seen, and I think that Northwest is really, really trying to make a play to get to that playoff spot, man. You know what I'm saying? So, hey, anything can happen on any given Friday, man, and definitely that's what happens. When you play Friday night football, man. Richland got a big one over Fossil Ridge, 49-14. We're going to talk about Richland a little bit, because I think that this is a team that has a chance to compete with Aledo when they match up with them. They got a big one against Ryan this week, who's coming off a loss. I think Ryan will travel to Richland. Richland's got a special running back in Jason Gibson. He's probably one of the better running backs in the state in the 2027 class. Ran for over 200 yards last week. He's over 1,000 yards for the season. Strong physical runner, a guy that can take it to the house from anywhere on the yard, anywhere down the distance. And he's a great receiver out of the backfield. Physical, great hips. He's a guy that runs with an excellent pad level, good contact balance as well. You're going to have to stop this guy to beat Richland. So I think that, Ryan knows that they're going to have to focus on him. They're going to have to get 11 hats to the ball, because this guy's not going to go down with arm tackles. So you have to really, really pay attention to this guy. I'm sure he's on that scouting report for sure. Big Cookie Warmate, defensive lineman, Sam Houston State commit for Richland. For Ryan, it's going to be a guy that's, they'll move him from outside to inside as well. He's a short yardage back for those guys as well. Of course, Hennigan at quarterback. They had a rough outing last week, but, I think that this is one that Ryan, they think that they can win, but I like Richland. I really do. I really like what they're doing over there. Coach Cates, has had this team playing at a high level so far this year. Historically, Richland has been one of those teams in the playoffs. You know what I'm saying? So I think that, this matchup is really intriguing. It's a matchup that possibly waiting on these credentials to come back, but I may be pulling up to that one. I want to get eyes on Richland this year, and also Ryan. So that's a game that's on our schedule. We'll see. We'll know probably tomorrow morning whether we get the credentials, which we go to Birdville ISD all the time, so it shouldn't be a problem. So, but I think that this is a matchup that's going to be won in the trenches. Ryan knows they got to stop Jason Gibson to get this win, and he's been going crazy each week, on the gridiron. So, he was recently at TCU for a visit. He's got Arkansas and a couple of more big-time offers. This is a big-time running back, about 5'10", runs a 4.47. This is a guy that's really starting to go up the recruiting ranks when you talk about top rushers, not just in the state of Texas, definitely in DFW for sure. But I think that this guy knows how to run the rock, and I like his running style. He's actually a guy that's been on my radar for a couple of years. This is just his first year to not share carries. He's the guy. You know what I'm saying? Rowlett got a big victory, 35-20 over Garland as well. Just looking at some of these scores, Panther Creek bounces back from the Salina loss last week, 51-12 over Paris. Brewers is playing well. Cam Coleman, another 2027 running back you need to know about. He's a guy that's been kind of flying under the radar, kind of in far West Fort Worth, but he's a guy that's been running that peel. You know what I'm saying? He had over 1,500 yards last year, and he had a big game against Denton in a 38-17 win. He's a guy that's got good speed, great quickness in between the tackles, and then he can make the house call. He's got that speed to get separation at the second level. But Cam Coleman for Brewers, a guy you need to know about as well. So definitely something you need to tap in with for sure, man. Definitely to keep an eye on Fort Worth Brewer as they try to make a playoff push as well, man. I think that that's a team. They lost to Alito, and I think they lost to. No, they beat Azle, but I'm not sure. I forgot. I was looking at Brewer just kind of a little bit. Because they had a big game against Denton. They're pushing for a playoff spot in that district. Oh, they lost to Richland. That's who they lost to. Yeah, so those are their two losses. So they've been battle tested. They played the meat of the schedule. They hadn't played Ryan yet. So if they can continue to string together wins, it's a possibility they can get in the playoffs for sure. Birdville in that district is another team that's kind of peaking at the right time. They got a big victory over Azle, 42-28. And Birdville's one of those teams that can get hot and get in the playoffs. In this particular game, they took care of business. They got a nice quarterback, Zach Wells. I had a chance to see him a couple of times in the offseason. He's a guy that's really been starting to blossom. He had a couple of injuries earlier last year, and now he's back, 109 yards and a tutty. And I think he's the guy that kind of makes that offense go over there at Birdville, a team you need to watch in that district. It's gonna get down to the nitty-gritty in these next couple of weeks as we start to make that playoff stretch. Shout out to Walnut Grove, 70-10, a big victory over Frisco Memorial last week. Eaton, we talked about them just a few minutes ago, a big victory over Keller Central, 34-31. Eaton's a team, but I think they play South Lake Carroll this week, so that's gonna be a big matchup. But here it is. South Lake Carroll's the number one team in the state for sure. That's going to be a tall task for the Eaton Eagles. But, South Lake is just such a juggernaut when it comes to everything that they do offensively and defensively. So, for Eaton, they're going to have to come out and play fast. I would set the tempo, try to, speed everything up because South Lake Carroll's going to come for you defensively. Offensively, they're one of the best offenses in the state. We're talking about South Lake Carroll. So, just running some numbers in this Keller Central game now. Keller Central actually outgained them 435 to 298 in total yards, and outgained them in first downs 19-14. But interception thrown, they had a turnover, and also you can look at the penalty yards here, 10 for 72. That killed you. So they were actually winning the game on statistically, but I mean. When you got 10 penalties for 72 yards, those are drive killers. So, something that you have to look at when you look at within your team. You know what I'm saying? So, but listen, man, we're gonna take a small break, and we're gonna come back and we're gonna talk about these games this week. We already mentioned a couple with Ryan and Richland. We're gonna look at a couple of matchups tomorrow night. One big one tomorrow night in Mansfield, right here on the On Your Mark Show, powered and sponsored by Sports Apparel, live from the Fishbowl Radio Network. What it do, man? On Your Mark Show on the Fishbowl Radio Network. Now, 6 o'clock in the evening every Wednesday. Yes, that's 6 o'clock. On the dot, we're taking you home. Ride with us
every Wednesday, man, as we roll you through the high school football season. Right now in the state of Texas, man, we're rolling, we're rocking, we're getting it done, man. Tune in every week to find out who's the hottest team, who's the hottest players, who the hottest coaches right here on the On Your Mark show. Powered and sponsored by Epic Sports Apparel, every player compete. Tap in. Outwork yesterday. It's going down. Remember, 6 o'clock on the dot every Wednesday from the Fishbowl Radio Network, the On Your Mark show. Come on over and hit your mark with your boy Mark Henry, man. Also go to onthemarksports.com. Check out the latest and greatest in high school football, college football, and also professional football. And check out the On Your Mark Show YouTube channel where you'll find this content from this very show up by tomorrow, which will be the next day, man. Definitely right here on the Fishbowl Radio Network, the On Your Mark Show. Listen, 2 years running the best sports show on the Fishbowl Radio Network. Tap in, hit your mark, the On Your Mark Show. Wednesdays, 6 o'clock on the Fishbowl Radio. Mark Henry here from the On Your Mark Show. It's that time of year where the Sharky Awards are upon us. You got time. You got to go vote right now for the On Your Mark Show every Wednesday right here on the Fishbowl Radio Network at 6 o'clock. We bringing you home now. Let's get those votes in. Male host of the year, show of the year, and of course, sports show of the year the last 2 years is the On Your Mark Show. Hit your mark with us. Get those award votes in right now. All you have to do is enter your name and your email and vote for us for show of the year, male host of the year, and sports show of the year on the Fishbowl Radio Network page. Go do it right now. We up right now, man. Let's get back to the show right here on the Fishbowl Radio Network.
All right, man, listen. Big games on Thursday, man, right here in the Metroplex. Let's dive into it. Byron Nelson takes on Keller. Listen, both teams have a chance to get to the playoffs. Byron Nelson's only loss, it's been to South Lake Carroll. They steamrolled through Trinity. Now they're looking at Keller. Keller is one of those teams as well that has a chance to get into this particular spot. It's fighting for the third and fourth spots along with Trinity. You got 5 teams that actually have a chance to get into the playoffs. Only 4 can go. So, fighting for a spot, it's Byron Nelson and Keller. I think that Nelson's been hot after that loss to South Lake Carroll. They lost to a very good Louisville team earlier in the season, and they're battle-tested. Right now, Keller's 3-3. They did have a big win over Bowie and Northwest, and they got by Keller Central. Now, they did fall to South Lake Carroll, but heck, everybody's falling to South Lake Carroll this year. But Carroll sits at the top of the standings when it comes to 4-6A. Then you got LD Bell at 3-1, Eaton at 2-1, and then the Keller Indians. And you got the Byron Nelson Bobcats at 2-1. So these are the top teams there. And then you got Trinity and Northwest here at 1-2. So, it's going to be a fight these last few weeks. So the head-to-head matchups with these particular teams are going to matter. So, it's a thing where you need to win every week. It's coming down to big plays, and it's coming down to execution. You got to get it done. But I think that this is a game that people are probably, at least I have circled on my games to look at. Argyle and Seguin, listen, McGuire Gassman's been playing at a high level for Argyle, and then you got Julian Caldwell as well for the Argyle Eagles. I think that, Seguin is one of those teams, they're coming off the loss last week to Timberview, but I think that they can give Argyle some trouble. Argyle's coming in at 4-1. Their only loss was to Frisco Lone Star in the first game, and they've won 4 straight since then. But in this particular district, in 3-5A Division II, Argyle sits atop this district at 3-0. And the Summit Jaguars, they take on the Timberview Timberwolves, which we'll talk about that game here while we're in that district. But, Argyle's leading the way. I think that 5A D2 as a whole, just around the state as well, and definitely DFW is probably one of the deepest when you come to Texas high school football. Just in general, 5A D2 is loaded with teams in Region 1, Region 2, and Region 3. But Argyle right now, they sit at the top. Can Seguin get them? that's what we're gonna see here. But I think that I think that Seguin is one of those teams that you gotta watch out for. Shout out to Coach Gordon and company over there. They know that they can play with these guys. Last year they kind of fell hard to them, but Chevy Andrews has been playing well at the quarterback position. A guy that can run it and throw it. You got a guy that really controls it. Isaac Bly's back, and at the running back position, he's a guy that's going to tote that peel for those guys. So I think that it's going to start in the trenches, of course. With Argyle, they want to pound you, they want to run the rock, and they want to hit you over top. Braden Bach, the tight end, is a guy, TCU commit, that you need to watch on the offensive side for Argyle. So Argyle's one of those teams you gotta stay physical with those guys, and you got to hit them in the mouth in order to beat them. But let's talk about Timberview. Shout out to my guy Coach Coleman, who's done a phenomenal job over there. The Timberview Timberwolves are 4-2 on the season. They got a big win against their rival, which was Seguin, 30-23 last week. Braylon Barnett has been a two-way star over there, especially on the offensive side. He's been playing at lights out, and I think you're going to see this guy start to attract some college attention as the season goes on. Timberview's pointing towards the playoffs. And Braylon Barnett's one of those guys that's been getting it done. We're talking about a guy that's shifty. He's got the speed to be a deep threat as well, but when he catches it, he can take it to the house. But he's a great route runner as well, and then he can go on the defensive side and play some corner for you. So he's one of those two-way stars in the 2027 class that you need to know about for sure. But Coach Coleman's got these guys playing well. Chance Collins is a DB you need to know about as well. Jacoby Easter is a two-way guy as well. I think that this is going to be who makes the big plays and who makes the big stops. Of course, Summit's rolling, and this is something that Summit does. You know what I mean? That they start to get better as the year goes on. The Jaguars have been famous for that for a few years. But in this district, though, right now everybody's chasing Argyle, and they're chasing Summit. And also they got the Burleson Elks, who just had a big win, and also Collierville Heritage is in this district. So the matchups, it's going to become where you have to get these wins. You have to get these wins each week. There's no margin for error in these particular districts. Again, we talked about 5AD2 just a second as one of the top divisions, regardless, in the state of Texas. I think 5AD2 is loaded. If you can get through and make it to state in 5AD2, you're a pretty good football team. You know what I mean? So, what more can you say about 5A Division II? Not just in this particular area in the DFW, but just around the state. You're talking about some teams that are loaded with some top talent for sure. And I think that you see this every week in and week out at this time of the year. It's really important to get your wins. It's really important that you take care of business on the field each week, man. You know what I'm saying? But these are Thursday games as well. So we mentioned the South Lake Carroll-Eaton matchup, and we mentioned Hebron as well, taking on Denton Guyer. That's on Thursday. Now, Hebron's one of those teams that's starting to get hot. And I think that, this is a game that Guyer's not going to be looking to when they got to play Louisville. Of course, that's become a rivalry, but Hebron's also a rivalry for Louisville. So, the Hawks, they're a really good team. You know what I mean? This is a team that you got to look out for. Now, their record may not say it at 2-3, but they got some wins over Flower Mound Marcus and Jesuit. Now they played Capel, Lancaster, and South Lake Carroll. They're battle tested. They played three of the best teams in the state, and they played the number one team in the state in the South Lake Carroll Dragons. So, these guys have been through the gamut, and they're battle tested. Which, in this district, that's saying something. You got Guyer, Louisville, Capel, Flower Mound Marcus, and Hebron as well. You're gonna have to win every game this week, and that's a big matchup. But the Guyer Wildcats, they want to pound that rock. They want to maul you, and they got a big time playmaker that I think a lot of people are starting to see, and that's Carter Morgan. He's a guy that can play quarterback. He's a guy that can play receiver. Of course, you got Zephyr Cry at quarterback as well. So that defense is led by Zane Rowe, who's a two-way star over there. Plays tight end as well, and the defensive end Kyron Haywood, Darren Neal, Garcia, linebacker. He can rush from the edge. This is a team that you need to watch out for. They're starting to get hot. Of course, they played Alito earlier in the year, and they lost to North Crowley by a point earlier in the year. this is what makes these teams better down the stretch as they've been battle tested. This is why you schedule these tough games earlier in the year to get you ready for district and then to get you ready for a playoff run. Who does that? These teams that are successful. So I think that's a big matchup on Thursday that you need to look out for as well. Bowie and Martin, that's a big game as well. I think that Bowie, is one of those teams. If they get into the playoffs, they'll be a tough out. South Grand Prairie, SGP, and Arlington, the Lamar Vikings. That's a big-time game over there in that district, and it's a Thursday night matchup. So, listen, if you're looking for games to go to on Thursday, man, I just gave you a few, and definitely not too far away from you in the Metroplex, man. You can get there and get your popcorn ready, man. SGP is one of those teams that if they get into the playoffs right now, they're the front runners in that district. They're going to be a tough out. So I think that this is a very, very good matchup as well. The matchup that I'm really looking forward to on Thursday is Mansfield Lake Ridge taking on the North Crowley Panthers. Of course, North Crowley, they're coming off a bye week, so they've been, kind of getting guys healthy, getting those bangs and bruises, some of those little small injuries, knick-knack injuries, getting those guys well and ready to go. They're going to be well rested. Now, Mansfield Lake Ridge is coming in at 4-1 on the season. Their only loss was to North Forney. They got a big one against rival Mansfield last week, 44-21. And I think the big thing with these guys is they got a potent running game. Of course, they got one of the best tackles in high school football in Felix Ojo, the Texas Tech commit. And then you got one of the best tackles for North Crowley and John Turntine III on the same field. It depends on who you're talking to. It's 1-2, when you come to the top tackles in the state of Texas. But I think that J.C. Cotton has been one of the running backs that you need to know about. He's been toting appeal for Lake Ridge this year. He's a guy that's one of the top better rushers in the area. And you got to look at that offensive line with Ojo and company. They're getting it done. Another guy that you probably need to get eyes on and know about is the quarterback, Deshaun Edwards. He's been playing at a high level, really, distributing the ball well. And also Noel Butler in the slot. He's a kick return guy as well. Guys, they've been kind of kicking away from him this year because last year he had a kick return of 194 yards, 2 kick returns last year as a junior. So, he hadn't been getting the touches that he wants on the special teams. They know about him. But I think that, he's a guy that if he gets loose and gets going, he's a guy that can be another weapon offensively. On the defensive side, Tyler Hockett's one of the best defensive backs on that team. He's a guy that's going to have somebody to deal with in Demarion Mays and Hayden Green on that offensive side, and Jeremy Cooper and those guys for North Crowley. But North Crowley's got two-back tandem in Jarrell Smith and Keontae Ingram that can get it done. Both of these guys will probably be over 1,000-yard rushers. Against Rockwall, Jarrell Smith had 5 tutties. So, he's a guy that's going to tote the rock as well as Ingram. They can both catch out of the backfield. They're versatile. So this North Crowley offense is going to be a handful for Lake Ridge, but can they get it done? They want to step up and play the big games and compete with the best. This is what you have to do. You have to win this district game. Now, North Crowley's been the district titleist or the district champion the last 3 years. They won a state title in 2024. All that's behind them now. They got the loss. The streak's over. Now they're ready to focus in on business. They took care of business against Legacy to win their first district game. Now, hey, Lake Ridge, if this is what you want, this is what you're asking for, this is what you want to roll with the big dogs, it's time for you to pull up and show up. This is what you want. You want to play big-time football. You want to play with the big dogs, step on the porch, and eat. You know what I'm saying? So, man, definitely I think this is going to be a game, definitely a game that, most likely I'll be pulling up to and getting eyes on. Hadn't seen Lake Ridge this year, so we got to see what the Eagles got. Again, this is a Thursday night matchup. Another good matchup is Terrell and Midlothian Heritage. The Tail Tigers have been one of the top rushing teams in the Metroplex as a whole. So, I think, they're another team in 5A Division II that you need to know about. But let's move on to Friday. We got a couple of big games. Of course, there is the big game, but I think there's a couple of big games that you need to know about around the Metroplex. Mansfield and Crowley. Can Crowley kind of right the ship? They got a tough loss to Boswell last week, and then Mansfield lost to Lake Ridge last week. So those are two teams that'll be looking to rebound and get back in the win column. Princeton and Allen, I think this is one of the most intriguing matchups definitely in the Metroplex. Now, the Allen Eagles, a lot of people saying they're back. But I think that, Princeton's one of those teams that you can't take your eye off of. They've had a couple of big wins this year. But the Allen Eagles are ranked in the top 5 in the state. They're 5-0 on the season. Big win over some of their big wins over Legacy, Maiden Legacy, Cedar Hill, Rock Hill, Plano, and McKinney. And they've pitched 3 shutouts, so the defense is balling. Shout out to my guy Caleb Smith over there, who's a Swiss Army knife when it comes to the offensive football. He can play running back, he can play wide receiver. He's a guy that can take it to the house on a kick return or punt return. Arizona commit. He's a guy that's been showing up for Allen this year. Of course, in that District 6A, you got Plano West at 3-1. Princeton, who we'll talk about here shortly, and the Prosper Eagles. That's going to be the matchup in a couple of weeks. Prosper and Allen. But listen, Allen can't look past Princeton. They're 3-1 on the season. Plano West is 3-1 on the season. And you got the Plano Wildcats sitting at 2-2. So, again, every game from this point on in these district matchups counts when it comes to playoff seeding and trying to push your way into the playoffs. But we're on a collision course for those Eagles to kind of bump heads, Prosper and Allen. That's going to be a big one. But on the docket this week, you got Princeton. And I think that the Panthers, their only loss was to Plano, 26-21. But they've had some big wins. They started off the season against West Mesquite with a 41-36 win. Took care of business against Naaman Forest, Plano East, and last week against McKinney. I think that these guys are ready for prime time, but they're going to have to be very, very physical. Marcus Flowers is the quarterback that you need to know about. He's a senior. He can run it. He can throw it. 6'2", 170. Jordan Mosley is a guy that they like to get the football to. Javian Smith on the offensive line is a guy you need to know about as well. I think that Princeton's trying to really, really stake their claim as a surprise team coming out because nobody saw these guys coming. I kind of knew about Flowers. I've seen him in the offseason this past spring a little bit, but to see him doing in pads, that's what you want. College coaches need to get a look at this guy because he's got all the intangibles that you want in a next level quarterback. He's getting it done, and he's leading these guys. It's going to be a big one. Now, it's in Princeton, so, hey, maybe they got a little bit of home cooking up there. You know what I'm saying? But this is a game to keep your lazy eye on because Princeton can play some ball. Louisville and Flower Mound's a game you need to watch. I think that Louisville's probably, shout out to my guy Trey Williams and Tennell Hill and those guys, Trajan Mueller over there. They've been playing some big-time football this year. I think that Louisville's the team that can get it done, but you never know. Again, Flower Mound's been laying in the cut. Can they punch it in? Can they get Louisville and get themselves back into the district race? But I really like Louisville this year. I had a chance to see them once already, and they got a really, really good team with those guys we just mentioned. That 2027 class, Bogany included. Shout out to Deuce Mathis over there. He's been playing some ball as well. I think that they're setting themselves up to make a run, but they got to get through the rest of this district slate in order to make that run. Lake Hollins and Jesuit's going to be a really good game. I think that, shout out to my guy Chuck Smith over there who's balling out of control, the quarterback, one of the top passers in the DFW this year. Jesuit's always a tough team, but I think Lake Hollins is making a push to be a playoff team this year as well. Now, the big game before we get out of here, everybody knows this game is coming. Everybody's going to be looking at this game, including myself, and that's the Duncanville DeSoto matchup. 2 heavyweights, 2 premier programs in the state of Texas, 2 premier programs in the country. Man, it's going to be a barn burner. This time it's in Duncanville. Last year it was in DeSoto. We're talking about head coach, Hall of Fame, Claude Mathis. Head coach, Hall of Famer, Reginald Samples. It doesn't get any better than that in the high school ranks in the country than those 2 guys. Then you get on the field and you got a plethora of top flight, next level, Power 4 talent. Let's start with DeSoto. Best back, one of the best backs in the state of Texas in 2027, phenom, playmaker, Sarad Baker. Had a chance to see Baker up close and personal the last couple of years. He was sharing time with Meister Johnson Cook last year, but he's the guy this year. He's got the backfield to himself when it comes to running backs. And he's showing everybody why he's one of the top running backs in the state of Texas. He can get it done. Legend Howell was out for a couple of games, and he was playing quarterback. He's a do-it-all athlete. He's not just a running back. He's an athlete. But he does tote the rock very, very well, and I like his game. He's got the speed, power. He's got that twitch in space, quickness that you need. And what you want from a running back, he's a guy that can go and get it. And listen, I saw one play he made against Mesquite where he jumped over a guy at the goal line and almost took that thing to the house. Sarrar Baker is the guy. I think he's probably going to be the key to DeSoto getting this win, because you want to establish the run game against a defensive front like Duncanville that features Kevin Ford or KJ Ford and Landon Barnes. On the outside, you got one of the best cornerbacks in the state of Texas and Victor Lincoln headed to Arkansas. And then you got on the back end, you got Braylon Edwards at safety. Then you got Barnes at corner as well, who I saw against Waxahachie. He looked very good as well. He's a junior. I believe he's a junior DB. He looked real good. He's a guy that's going to definitely be on some college radars if he's not already. On offense for Duncanville, you got a three-headed monster at the wide receiver position. Zachary Turner, SMU commit. Asen Theus, TCU commit. And then you got one of the top 2027 wide receivers in Trenton Yancey. Max Denson, he started the first two games against South Oak Cliff and against Waxahachie. And you also had Rivers come in the Waxahachie game and play. So I think the interesting thing is we'll see who kind of is taking over the reins at the quarterback position. You got two guys who can bring a versatile skill set for Duncanville at the quarterback position. I think the run game with Arnold. I think Braden Arnold's one of those guys in the 2028 class that colleges have already started to tap in with. Saw him live at 5 against Waxahachie. Makes a couple of good runs here and there. I think Duncanville got away from the running game in that particular game, but they scored on big plays. And Waxahachie won it on special teams as well, with a return for an extra point, a PAT return, and then Jordan Smith takes it to the house on a kick return. And then Duncanville missed an extra point. So those are points and, key moments in the game that mattered in that 28-27 win for Waxahachie. And they took it. How does Duncanville rebound from that? Welcoming in their rival into their house. They want to lock the gates. We all know that's the mantra for the Duncanville Panthers. And they mean that when they say lock the gates. They want to lock you in and they let you out when they get ready. You know what I'm saying? So, physical brand of football, lots of speed and athleticism on both sides of the football. Antron Edmondson for the DeSoto Eagles is a wide receiver that you need to know about. He's got a large catch radius. He can go get it, jump ball, great hands, late hands. He tracks the ball well. Saw him up close and personal against North Crowley. Made a couple of big plays, had a touchdown catch on a back shoulder catch. And this guy, he can get it done. Of course, we know the USC commit Ethan Feaster is going to be in the mix as well. Legend Howell's back, seems to be getting healthy at the right time. Now, can DeSoto go in there and do this? They definitely are set up to do it. But will they do it? That's to be seen or heard. I think DeSoto knows that this is a big game. The defense is going to have to play well, which they've been doing the last couple of weeks. Both teams had a bye coming into this game, so everybody should be healthy and ready to roll. When we come in Saturday, it's going to be some guys in the cold tubs. This is going to be a physical game. It always is between these two teams. And you definitely got to see that up close and personal, man. I'm going to be having that one on my radar if I'm not in the house myself. Still waiting on people to get back to me. I'm sure all the emails will be flooded in the morning, man, when they come to approve and stuff. But, I usually don't have a big problem with that kind of stuff. But we'll see where we go this week. Definitely will probably be in Mansfield tomorrow for the Lake Ridge North Crowley game on Thursday, and then Friday it's going to be a toss-up. We'll have to see. I have to flip a coin and see what it do. But Waxahachie welcomes in Mesquite Horn. The Indians, hey, I think they can play with anybody. They still got a chance to win that district championship. They got to win out, though. They still got to play Mesquite Horn. They still got to play, which is who they play this week, and they still got to play Cedar Hill. So, the Indians will be right back in this thing if they can get back in there. Lancaster's an interesting team. I think that the Tigers got to get some things, corrected there. And they got Skyline this week. They can't sleep. If they want to get back in this playoff picture, they got to beat Skyline. And we talked about the Richland Ryan game, we'll touch on that again. I really think that Richland's one of those teams that's definitely on the cusp of doing some big things. Of course, they got Denton Ryan this week and still have to play the Aledo Bearcats down the line. But one game at a time for Richland. I definitely think that this team is going to be a playoff team. Now, whether they win the district or not, that's going to be seen, not heard. So, we want to look at these big games. That Aledo game is on October 24th. So that's 2 weeks, and it's going to be at Birdville. Definitely going to be in the house for that one. There ain't no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I'm pulling up because I want to definitely see, what Richland and Aledo look like. We're waiting on Birdville ISD to kind of get back to us, which we never had a problem with those guys letting us in the building. Always great hospitality at Birdville ISD Stadium. But we're going to see what Richland does against Ryan this week. That's the big matchup over in that district. Of course, everybody's looking up at Aledo now, and Richland, if they want to be that playoff team, if they want to be that district titleist, they have to get past Ryan. No ifs, ands, or buts about it, and that's what it's all about, man. Any Friday night, anything can happen, man. Shout out to my guys over at Third Down Media as well. My guy Hammer, my guy Creative Jones in the building. You know what I'm saying? We've been doing some things behind the scenes. Check out Third Down Media as well, and definitely check out this show later on today or tonight on the On Your Mark Show YouTube channel. Go to onyourmarksports.com and check out the latest rankings as well. Definitely tap in with us each week right here on the Fishbowl Radio Network, the On Your Mark Show. Powered and sponsored by Epic Sports Apparel. That's all we got for you today. But listen, tap in with me each week. We're going to glide you home right here at 6 o'clock from the Fishbowl Radio Network. Listen, if you hadn't done it already, go to the Fishbowl Radio Network website. Look under awards, or it says vote. Go and vote for the Sharky Awards. We've been the best sports show on the Fishbowl Radio Network for 3 years running. We want to keep that going. Now, we're eligible to be the best show overall. And listen, I'm the hostess with the mostest. I want to be the best host, man. Tap in and vote. That's all you got to do, man. On Your Mark Show, Mark Kennedy, you know what it is. You know what I'm saying? Right here on the Fishbowl Radio Network, we out.
Hey, this Mike. I'm not sure what you own, but this here is on the mark. Like a spiral from a 5-star recruit, we throwing darts, really focused. WD-40 couldn't stop the way we grinded. In the trenches, putting that work in, I relate to all my linemen. This is for the men, the boys do not belong here. Tiptoeing to the top, we doing cone drills. The hottest show in the world, you don't even gotta search. Steady putting in work, you see the sweat up on my shirt. They wasn't aware of us at first, we wasn't on their radar. Now every play that we make, they gon' say, similar to a razor blade, we gon' stay sharp. The news ain't official if it's not on the mark.